Hi, Bill here. I was going to talk to you guys about something related to Lyme and chronic illnesses that I don't think I've addressed before, and that is parasites. That's right, let's go there. Um, Intestinal parasites, worms. I know that's something a lot of people don't really talk about much. They don't want to. They don't want to talk about it. They don't want to hear about it. But a lot of people, I think, in our, I guess you could call it Western civilized nations, don't believe we have parasites, and nothing could be further from the truth. We have them, and that's all there is to it. And I've talked about different detox things in some of my videos, and one of those being coffee enemas. And I used to say that's where I draw the line in the sand. Not going to do that. Well, that line's gone long ago. When you've been sick long enough with Lyme or different chronic infections, different chronic illnesses, you'll do whatever it takes to try to get better. So that was one of them, and I experienced, a little bit of seeing. This is going to be a TMI video, so if you don't want to hear about worms and parasites, you might want to turn it off. But when I first started doing coffee enemas, I did experience some small worms, some a small amount of them, not a lot, here and there, and and then for a while, nothing. And then for a while, maybe just a couple for a couple days, and then for a while now, I've seen nothing. And I've heard a lot of different people in the Lyme community talking about this, talking about parasites. I recently listened to Dr. J. Davidson, and he had a couple Lyme summits where he, invited a lot of different experts in the field to give a lot of talks. And his latest one was concerning parasites, in relation to Lyme and chronic illnesses. And they had a lot of good people on there, Klinghardt, and a whole lot of people. And the one thing that I kind of gleaned from it was, of course, we all have parasites. If you're breathing, you have them, some people say. And the one thing that kind of struck me when I was listening to a lot of these people, and it was kind of like an epiphany, I guess you could say, the light bulb came on. We have Lyme and different nasty, horrid bacteria in our bodies, and they can actually live in the parasites. So I thought, okay, if we got these parasites in our body and we're treating Lyme, how can the treatments possibly, affect the microbes that are inside those parasites? So let's say theoretically, you think you've beaten Lyme or whatever illness you're struggling with. A lot of people, when they stop treatment, a little while later they'll relapse. And I thought, well, what if the Lyme bacteria is in the parasites and later on comes back out, and there you go, you relapse. So I just kind of thought, that's got to be a possibility. There's got to be something to that. So I've listened to a lot of people and read a lot of things on different protocols for eliminating parasites, and a lot of people are using coffee enemas, which is fine. I mean, that only reaches so far as far as parasites go. And there's some, I haven't done a coffee enema video yet. I haven't gone there, but there's some awesome ones out there. Trying to think of a couple. I don't want to leave anybody out, but I know Jess from Passionate Healers did a really good one, and I know Victoria from Lemons and Lyme did a really good one, and there's some other ones out there too. So you might want to look them up. But like I said, it only reaches so far, and I've listened to a lot of these protocols, and a lot of these protocols sound like, they're talking months or even years to get rid of these things. Well, I'm not a real patient man sometimes. Learning to be more patient, have a Lyme. It's not a sprint, it's a marathon. This is something that there's no quick fix, and there's no magic silver bullet or whatever you want to call it. No easy way to get over this. It's a long-term struggle, as you all know. I don't have to tell you that. But I started thinking, this doesn't make sense. Some of these protocols, yeah, I'm sure they work. But it really just seems odd to me that it would take a long, long time for that to happen. I started looking into what a lot of our ancestors and, old timers, back in the day, farmers, especially, they used to deworm their family twice a year, I think was the tradition, and also their livestock. They made sure they did both at the same time so they weren't reinfecting each other. So I thought, okay, if they're doing this twice a year, they're doing it something that's probably going to happen pretty quick, And so I started looking into that, and I found, as you all know, I've been doing Stephen Booner's protocols for Babesia and then Bartonella and Lyme. And he had a recipe that, okay, I'm going to tell you, this is going to be kind of an experiment here I'm going to do. So I just started today. And he has a recipe for eliminating intestinal parasites that I started today. And I'll just tell you some of the things that are in it. We got bags of herbs here for this protocol. This one is Sida, acuta, and that's another one that I make tinctures out of that's really good for Babesia and Bartonella and Lyme. And I'll tell you how all this recipe goes in a minute after I tell you what all's in it. This one is, see the leaves there? This is Alchornea cordifolia. This one is an herb. It says it's from Ghana, Africa. The Sida acuta, country of origin, India. So this one is a real tropical herb. It's not really if it's in the United States, it might be in Florida. But I haven't found it, and I'll get to that in a second. The Alchornea was from Ghana. Another thing is just plain old ginger root, chopped up, grated up real fine. And these are all whole leaf, what they call cut and sifted in the herbal world. They're not powdered because we're going to make a tea out of them. And the last one is, I'm probably butchering some of these pronunciations, but this one is Artemisia absinthium. Now, Artemisia annua is the one that's typically used for Babesia, and it's an anti-malarial herb. And, this one is more of I think, an invasive that grows in a lot of different parts of the world. The Artemisia annua that's used for Babesia is called Sweet Annie. This one, this Artemisia absinthium, is called Wormwood. That's a term that you don't hear very often, and I remembered hearing that term in church not too long ago. And I looked it up, and I just wanted to see, what is this stuff? So I looked up and found a couple references to it in the Bible. There's probably more than this. There's probably several. But the one I found is in Proverbs 5. It says, my son, pay attention to my wisdom. Lend your ear to my understanding, that you may perceive discretion, and your lips may keep knowledge. For the lips of an immoral woman drip honey, and her mouth is smoother than oil. But in the end, she is bitter as wormwood. That's a hint there. I'll tell you about that in a minute, the bitter part. The second verse I found is in Revelation 8, and this is, what they call the seven trumpets. And the third one, it's called the third trumpet, the waters struck. Then the third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water, and the name of the star is Wormwood. A third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the water because it was made bitter. Okay, so I read you that because I had remembered seeing that word wormwood in the Bible a couple times and wondered what this plant is. And so what you do with this stuff, if you want the recipe, give me a shout out below and I'll send it to you for those who are brave at heart, we'll say. I'll explain that in a second too. So what you do is, you combine all these leaves and the grated ginger together. certain percentage of each, and pour nearly boiling water on them. And I put them, and you cover it up overnight. I put them in a insulated growler. It's like a half-gallon, thermos, and you let it sit overnight, and then you squeeze all the water. You drain it and squeeze all the water out of it, and then that makes 8 cups of tea, and that's supposed to be for 2 days. And I'm supposed to do this for 8 days is the protocol. And what I will say about this, okay, you all know me. I take a lot of herbal, tinctures and different things, and I make a lot of herbal teas, and a lot of these tinctures are extremely bitter tasting, and some of them I'm getting used to. And I even take andrographis, which is that one. Has a couple different names. One of them is called King of Bitters, and the other name for it is Bile of the Earth. So that tells you how bitter it is. When I burp it up, it's like, whew, this stuff, I've never tasted anything this bitter in my life. You better have something to chase it down with. I'll go through a lot of stevia with this stuff. So I'm doing 4 cups a day, spaced out during the day. So when you make that half gallon, it's enough for 2 days. So I have to do that 4 different times to last for 8 days, and that's what this protocol calls for. We'll see what happens. I figured I'll be your human guinea pig for this real fast intestinal worm purge, I guess we could call it. I joke about it, but it is something that I was thinking seriously about, because as all of you, I want rid of this Lyme and these co-infections. And, when it started occurring to me that could be something that's holding you back in different ways. A lot of the parasites can, suck the nutrients. They're going to eat the nutrients before you get a chance to absorb them, for one thing. And a lot of people say they'll, give us a lot of this brain fog that we have with Lyme. So it's kind of a double whammy, and so I'm doing this experiment, and I'll let you know how it goes. And if you have any questions for me, I'll put them below. And I just started this today. I've had 2 cups of it so far today, and so far so good. Nothing to report yet. So I'll let you know how it goes.